Yep, it's been 1 month already. The Switch 2 was hyped for so long, launched with a huge boom, and the hype is still there. But I think that hype is largely from huge Nintendo fans, or people who don't have one yet, or people who just love playing Mario Kart. I really do like the Switch 2. It's a massive improvement over the Switch 1. That's just not saying much. The Switch 1 was my favorite console of all time. It was so vastly innovative. The marriage of home console and portable gaming created a whole new industry that I never could have seen coming. It just overstayed its welcome a little bit at the end there. Just a few years ago, it became outclassed by much more powerful hardware. A refresh has been sorely needed. The Switch 2 is more than just a refresh. It's a whole new console generation for Nintendo. But it does kind of just feel like a refresh in its current state. Mario Kart World. That's about all that we have to prove that Nintendo is in their next generation. There's more. There's third parties, but those are only exciting if you've only ever had a Nintendo Switch 1 for the past 5 years. I don't want to minimize it too much. It's genuinely exciting to have some of these games on a Nintendo console. I personally have been able to experience Street Fighter 6 and Cyberpunk in a handheld form factor already. I have handheld PCs. It is kind of sick being able to play high-powered games intended for powerful PS5s. Now, they're in the palm of my sweaty hands. Being able to do this on a Nintendo console is pretty sick. Nintendo's never really the most technologically advanced, but they usually have pretty solid design. It looks nice, it feels nice to hold. It's also mainstream. The support for it is massive. This is a console for the whole world. This is the console for your dad or your friend's dumb little kid. Anybody can use this thing. Now, anybody can experience powerful handheld play. So yeah, it's cool. I'm someone who already has a lot of experience with powerful handheld play though. So the hype for this thing kind of already wore off on me pretty quick. In fact, I'd say the hype took a pretty substantial nosedive for me. Mario Kart World is fine. I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan. There's just no other unique software on the console that interests me. Outside of that, though, I do feel a little misled. There were a lot of technical details that were getting me really excited about this thing that ended up being a little over-exaggerated or maybe not even true at all. These are things that even I was making a big stink about before the launch of the Switch 2. These are things that still can be addressed, though. There's still time to fix this. Hopefully, Nintendo can fix some of these things in the future once there's more people with Switch 2s out there in the world. And more software for it. But for now, I kind of just feel like I'm sitting here waiting for that support to trickle in. This video is sponsored by Satisfy. All right, class, settle down. Settle down. I said settle down! Welcome to Ergonomics 101. If you're in this class, you were referred here by your homeroom teacher because you've been holding your Nintendo Switch 2 wrong this whole time. No, turn it around. No, turn it around. Yes, that's it. Thank you. But it's still wrong! Here, you need one of these. Ready? I'm okay. Oh, thank God. Satisfy Zen Grip 2 turns your Switch 2 from an ergonomic nightmare to an ergonomic dream come true. No more cramping up during long play sessions. The asymmetric design corrects your hand placement for better controls. It's perfectly dockable too, even with a screen protector on. No bulging or rubbing from the dock. There's no need to take the grip off at all. Hey, you listening? Hello? Hey, you sleeping? Yes. Oh. Wait, huh? Rubberized grips. Free-floating design to protect the Switch 2. It stands up on its own and it still has access to the kickstand and both USB-C ports. The Satisfy Zen Grip 2 is available now at satisfy.com and use code WOLF10 to get 15% off of the Zen Grip 2 and the Slim Bundle. Yes, you're getting the hang of it now. Maybe they'll finally pass the Regents this year. No, the crayons go on the paper. Oh. I'll call the nurse. Nurse, I know, second time today. The teacher's got some arm on him. The magnetic Joy-Con are pretty cool. They're even more satisfying to take off and put on. They do make the entire Switch 2 unit feel a bit less like one solid piece, though. The Switch 1 Joy-Cons were on there a bit more securely. The Switch 2 Joy-Con have some give to them. This is by design. It's so if you apply too much pressure, they can just pop off before breaking. I guess this is an okay trade-off. I do like the extra USB-C on the top. I have been genuinely using this a lot. I usually always charge it from the top USB-C port and leave it propped standing up with its new sturdy kickstand. The soft touch finish does feel nice and premium. It doesn't hold fingerprints all that much, but it does hold scratches really well. I've been messing around with this 3D printed controller attachment, and I've scratched the absolute shit out of my Joy-Con. The screen is an absolute fingerprint magnet, and it feels cheap and plasticky. According to Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, it has a thin layer of tempered glass on it, like a built-in screen protector, but it doesn't feel like tempered glass. It feels like cheap plastic. It feels like I could scratch it with my fingernail, but luckily it is pretty scratch resistant. You're not going to get many micro scratches on here, unlike the Joy-Con. I genuinely like the new updated design. I already liked the Switch 1, so an updated version of that is totally fine by me. It's more, but better, and that's good. This is also an extremely powerful device and extremely power efficient. In my testing, the quality of these third-party games is about on par with what you'd see from an ROG Ally X, maybe like slightly worse, but it's drawing way less power and the fans are dead silent. And this thing is thin and way nicer than any PC handheld out there. And it's like half the price. So all of that is very impressive. And that's all pretty much to be expected. What I wasn't expecting were all of the issues with the screen. If you didn't know any better, you'd think everything looks just fine. At first glance, it looks like a massive improvement over the Switch 1's screen. The colors are more saturated, the contrast pops more, it's darker even when the screen is off, it's higher resolution, it's bigger and brighter. I was sort of praising this screen after the hands-on event in New York City. Sure, it's not OLED, but I've seen some pretty damn good-looking LCD screens, and this looks very similar to those. I feel a little duped by that Nintendo event and some of the specs Nintendo was putting out there. I'm the type of guy who gets really excited over technical details, so this got to my head a little bit. The only game they let you play in portable mode at the event was Mario Kart World. There was also a little corner where they had Breath of the Wild, but that's a Switch 1 game, so that doesn't count. The whole room was pretty dark, so the screen looked fantastic. That higher contrast must be an effect of the new HDR screen this has or something, right? Well, it turns out the HDR is like not a significant change. Turning HDR off and on shows almost no difference. And according to Monitors Unboxed, who know a lot more about display technology than you or I do, the HDR in the Switch 2 isn't even really HDR. It just makes everything slightly brighter. And I noticed this even when docked. There's just not that much of a change between HDR on and HDR off. Well, that's one technical detail squashed. You might have heard about the slow response time this screen has. There's a lot of hubbub about that on Twitter. At the event, the screen looked really fast. Mario Kart World looked really smooth, like a super high refresh rate, and it still does. The Switch 2 was marketed as being capable of 120 Hz. Well, they never said Mario Kart World was capable of 120 Hz. That was a rumor that I fell for. And, well, the guy at the event did say it was 120 frames per second, so that might have gotten my hopes up too.
So is this 120 right now, or? Oh, wow.
So it's 1080p, 120 frames right now.
Supposedly. Until Digital Foundry gets their hands on it.
There's no 4K on the game.
Oh, yeah.
Fast forward to when I got the Switch 2 home, and I was surprised and disappointed that nothing supported 120 Hz outside of that one Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour mini game. And even then, I was still convinced that Mario Kart World was 120 frames per second in handheld mode. It turns out the reason it looks so smooth is because the response time is so slow. I know this sounds counterintuitive. The screen takes so long to refresh to the next frame that what you're looking at is mostly blurring. After that initial hands-on video, I took some slow motion video of Mario Kart World in handheld mode because I really wanted to see what was going on here. You can see when the frame freezes for a bit. That should be holding for a lot longer, but instead the screen just slowly transitions to the next frame. It means that with 60 frames per second gameplay, about 50% of that gameplay is just gonna be a blur, which is weirdly cool for Mario Kart World because it's such a fast-paced game. It looks smoother. It tricked me into thinking it was a high frame rate. Some people can see this blurring when just playing casually, and this makes playing the Switch 2 portably for them a terrible experience. Since learning about this, I played some games portably, and honestly, I don't really notice much of a difference. I tried some Mario Maker 2. Some people say that playing 2D games in handheld mode shows a lot more blurriness. Maybe like a little bit, but it doesn't really bother me. I just don't think I'm really that sensitive to it. What I think is more egregious is that this slow response time means that the Nintendo Switch 2 has the worst input lag out of any modern handheld that's out there right now, which is a shame for playing like competitive games portably, and it's a real big shame for that Nintendo Switch 2 SP that I built last week. This is maybe not the most ideal way to play some competitive Street Fighter after all. I genuinely don't see how this 120 Hz panel is ever gonna reach those high frame rates, especially when the response time is this slow at just 60 Hz. What the hell is Metroid gonna look like in handheld mode? We have never seen Metroid running in handheld mode, only docked mode. And I think there's a reason for that. I think that they don't have it figured out yet. It is possible that this can be fixed with a firmware update from Nintendo. They would have to overdrive the LCD panel, which should have no significant impact to battery life. I think it's less than 1%. Hopefully, they can figure this out before Metroid or any other significant game comes out with high frame rates. I admittedly don't play a lot of games in portable mode. I usually play docked to a computer monitor. I was still very excited for 120 Hz docked play. This is another thing that is supported by almost no game, not even Fortnite. But I was excited for variable refresh rate. This is something that could help smooth out some gameplay that might be inconsistent or doesn't get up to that high of frame rates. Games like Cyberpunk that fluctuate between the 30 to 40 frames per second mark, they look way smoother with a screen that supports variable refresh rate. Unfortunately, that isn't supported in docked mode. It was on the spec sheet, but it was removed after Nintendo realized that it wouldn't be so easy to implement. The way the dock converts a DisplayPort signal to HDMI apparently doesn't play nice with variable refresh rate. This is something they could fix in an update as well, but it would not be easy. It would probably be very finicky, and I'm sure Nintendo doesn't want it to be finicky. So I spent a lot of time talking about some technical details that disappointed me about this thing. This is like a gaming tech channel. So, of course, those are the things that I'm going to be excited or disappointed about. I'd imagine most people aren't going to care about any of those things. Most people are just going to want to play some games on here. And even that, you got Mario Kart. Mario Kart World is the big one. And don't get me wrong, it is a massive game. People do seem to really like it. Me personally, I've been a little underwhelmed. It was cool dabbling around with friends for a bit, and the time trials people have been competing over have looked really enticing, but I just think I'm over it. I'm over here just waiting for Donkey Kong Bonanza. That game's looking a lot more like Mario Odyssey, and I love Mario Odyssey, so I'm all for that. In fact, it's confirmed to be made by the same people. I'm a little skeptical that it'll run all that great. Having destructible environments and all those particle effects is a recipe for frame dips, especially if you're going to be playing in portable mode. I would love for this game to have a performance mode. I'd love to sacrifice resolution for frame rate in this game. Honestly, a lot of people have just been using their Switch 2 to play Switch 1 games. And I was a little interested to see how that worked too, because it is using a translation layer to sort of emulate those Switch 1 games. Not every Switch 1 game is supported, but almost all of them are. Some games have massive advertised improvements. The two big Zelda games have enhanced versions that you can pay to upgrade, or you can get the upgrade as part of your Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack subscription. There are games that have free upgrades, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They have massively improved frame rates, but there's also games that have no advertised improvements, but still run better on the Switch 2. Smash Bros. Has massively improved load times. I tested Mario Maker 2, which has no advertised improvements. Everything looked pretty much the same as the Switch 1 version, until you try to purposely induce some lag. There are some levels that use an exploit to add a ton of springs, and the more springs you add, the more lag the game has. One of these levels purposely runs slower. You are supposed to play the level in slow motion. Well, on the Switch 2, it doesn't run slower. It runs at normal speed. Here's a level that tries to induce as much slowdown as possible. We can see that the Switch 2 doesn't slow down nearly as much as the Switch 1. This is an interesting problem to have, because it means that people who are playing these specific levels on Mario Maker 2 on the Switch 2 are going to be at a disadvantage, because players on the Switch 1 are playing in bullet time. But this is like a really, really niche case. There are barely any levels that are like this. I also tried playing Mario Maker 2 online, which is still terrible on the Switch 2, but there were like no players in the queue. In fact, I was streaming and someone in my chat was in the lobby with me. He also had a Switch 2. I think that Mario Maker 2 is only matching you against players who also have a Switch 2. I played recently on the Switch 1, and the queues weren't nearly this bad. There were a lot more players. It does make a little bit of sense. If the game runs better on the Switch 2, then they might want to separate those two player pools. Segmenting players like this is a little bit of a problem, because now you have smaller player pools. So the queues are going to take longer on the Switch 2 version right now, because not that many people have it. Is this what it's like on every Switch 2 game? Is this what it's like in Smash Brothers? Smash Brothers probably has some maps that run slightly better on the Switch 2 version. I think Fountain of Dreams is one of them. Do they only want Smash Brothers players to play against people with the same hardware? Outside of this, I've been enjoying some Fortnite with some mouse mode.
Yeah, get that shit in.
Right in here.
Oh, wait, I'm stuck in the emotes.
I hope more games implement mouse mode. I would love Marvel Rivals to be on here. That'll get me to play that game some more. But that's about it. That's about all I've been experiencing on my Nintendo Switch 2. As a Nintendo fan, it is kind of exciting to be playing games that I've already been playing just on new, nice hardware now. I've been waiting years for this. But even after all of that hype, sometimes when I'm laying in bed at night, I reach for a PC handheld still. I've got my whole Steam library right there. The compatibility is just better. But I understand that I have the privilege of owning tons of different hardware to play games on. The week that this thing came out, I sat on the couch over there playing my Lenovo Legion Co. S. I still hesitate to recommend a PC handheld over a Switch 2 to most people. If you have to ask, the answer is probably a Switch 2. People who should get a PC handheld already know that they should get a PC handheld. The Switch 2 is just way easier to work with for most people. Games just boot up and work. You don't have to go into the settings first for anything. And as it stands right now, the quality of the games is more or less the same. This might not be true a year from now, but that's how it is right now. I'm a little excited to find some new and wacky ways to use these Joy-Con and some ways to affix other controllers to this thing. But I just need more games to be excited about. I think I let myself get overhyped by the hardware that was promised here. I feel a little misled by Nintendo. I am impressed by the power that these games can push and the backwards compatibility that is actually improving a lot of games. I'm also impressed that it has sold so much and is still pretty readily available in stores. But this is still the early days of the Switch 2. It needs some more time to bake in the oven. There's some kinks that I'd like to be ironed out with some updates, and some games I'd like to see added to the catalog. Maybe by the holidays, it'll be a worthy upgrade for most people. Right now, it's for early adopters. I'm sure I'll opt to pick mine up more and more as the months go by. Outside of the Mario Maker, of course. So what do you guys think about the Nintendo Switch 2? He doesn't even care. He could care less about the Nintendo Switch 2. Has the hype died down for you? What else are you playing on it? What are you excited to play in the future? What did I leave out? What should I be playing on this thing? Leave it in the comments below. At me on Twitter and any and all of this other social media garbage. Look, I'm not trying to knock it too much. Maybe if they make a Mario Maker 3, this thing will be my new favorite handheld of all time. Hey, I stream on twitch.tv pretty frequently, and we mess around with stuff like this and talk about it and whatever. We were doing open Mario Kart lobbies. I don't know if I'm playing Mario Kart anytime soon. Thank you, Satisfy, for sponsoring this video and for giving me a nice grip. It's 15% off. Use code Wulff down in the link in the description below. Most important thing you can do is subscribe, please, for the love of God, for him, and share this video with a friend who is thinking about getting a Switch, and maybe they don't really need it right now. Thank you very much. Have yourself a very good week.